Hey everyone, it's Larry Sher, ASC. I'm here with another Clubhouse Conversation. And today I'm really excited to bring you guys a conversation about Servant, Apple TV's streaming TV series that was directed by M. Night Shyamalan, who's with us today, and shot by the wonderful Mike Gioulakis. Here's the trailer. Check it out.
Leanne? Leanne Grayson?
Hello, Mrs. Turner.
Hi, I'm Sean.
Pleased to meet you, Mr. Turner. You have a beautiful home.
She is a godsend.
I was expecting someone older, less weird.
We hope you'll treat our house as your home. I'm sure you and Jericho will form an instant bond.
She's cool with everything? She knows the situation. I guess we should talk about this. She's gone. You can put the doll down now.
I'm fine as I am, Mr. Turner.
We lost Jericho when he was 13 weeks. Dorothy took it hard. This is the only thing that brought her back.
I should take Jericho for his walk now.
You hired a nanny for a doll?
Where did you find her?
She is wonderful with Jericho. And if my baby trusts her, so do I. How much did those boys tell you about what happened?
What if she wakes up? What if she remembers?
Do you know who you welcomed into your home?
Hey guys, we're going to do another one of these coffee and conversations, COVID style, on Zoom here. I'm so excited for this one because it's two people I really admire. I've never met, never really even talked to, and they made an amazing show on Apple called Servant. The director, M. Night Shyamalan, and the DP, the very talented Michael Gioulakis. Did I say that right? I'm just going to call you Mike G like everyone else
good.
does.
It's within margin of error, so it's good.
Right. I've been practicing all night and I still screwed it up.
Yeah.
Anyway, thank you for being here. I'm excited to talk about the show. I really enjoyed it, and it's a really beautiful piece of filmmaking. So let's get into it. First, I want to ask the question. I'll start, even though we're in the ASC Clubhouse Conversation, where we have the sort of the great honor to have the director here, and the sort of co-creator of the show, and the sort of the vision of the show in Night. And I guess my question to you first and foremost is, why this? What was your connection to the material, and what were you setting out to tell when you sort of thought, okay, this is going to be a project I'm going to dig my teeth into?
You know, when it came to me in pilot form, the things that stood out to me were that it was very, very contained, which is something I love. The more contained, the better for me. And this idea that it never left the brownstone was very exciting in terms of being able to put something together that had the highest quality possible. For me, the equation on television that's very, very difficult is the amount of material needed and the amount of time that you have to do it. And so that equation doesn't usually hold up when you compare it to film. So that has been my hesitation. And it just keeps on going unrelentingly. It keeps on going. And eventually you're going to see that curve come down. So for it to be so contained gave us the opportunity to hold ourselves to a very high standard. And it was something that Mike and I talked about a lot about, how can we do something on a biblical scale but never leave this brownstone? in Pennsylvania, Philadelphia.
Yeah, well, that leads to a question I have for Mike and you guys, obviously, this is your third time working together, correct? You worked on Split and Glass.
That's correct.
And
Yeah.
I don't know if any other sort of projects, but so obviously you have, a language that you already speak together. But I always think sometimes, and this is just my own personal thing as a DP, that sometimes it scares me to be in one spot for so long. Like I feel like by day 3, I want to rip every light out and start over again. Is it something that the excitement of Night having the control of like this, and you've obviously done it in some of your other shows and your movies, this idea of containment is obviously something that has been present in your work. For you, Mike, is that something that excites you, that level of control, or does it also put a little bit of trepidation of perhaps the boredom of repeating the same 4 walls or 5, like rooms and environments in a house?
Well, we were fortunate enough to have, I think, when I joined, we had, I think, most of the scripts in there, and we'd read, did not read as tiresome. Like the scripts really read wonderfully, and so I think I didn't feel claustrophobic by reading it, and also it was also just, I think, for me personally, I'm more excited, I think, about just simple things where like where's a good place to put the camera in the scene. Big set pieces and stuff like that, while they can be fun, they can also be kind of daunting, and I feel like I always lose sight of the cinematography sometimes when having to, when you're constantly going to new locations and things like that every day, tearing down, putting it back up, you get something going just enough where it looks good, and then you're moving on to the next location again, kind of thing. So this was a really nice opportunity to just stay in one place and try to be better each day. I really enjoyed the challenge, honestly. Yeah, it was. Yeah.
So tell me, let's talk about just the set for a second, because it's kind of a character in itself, from like the cellar, wine cellar to each floor. Obviously, production design and the creation of this brownstone was such a critical part to the storytelling, and also from a practical standpoint. Tell me a little bit about where you sort of came in. Night, maybe you start Night with like the construction of that and how you decided to practically pull it off on a stage to give you all of the elements that you need, and its connection to the exterior, and what those cheats were to they maybe tie it to the grander world that and when you had to sort of match it to a greater exterior block in maybe Rittenhouse or wherever you were.
I was lucky this time with this project to give Mike a little bit more room to imagine and work on what would your ideal version of this be, what's the easiest way. So he came in early, and we worked with the production designer Naaman, and we broke the floors up. Each of the floors they're each a separate stage, and they each have stairs that they duplicate the stairs that go to the next set. And we shoot about, say we shoot 7 days for every episode. One of those days is on location on the actual Spruce Street in Philadelphia, and the other 6 are on the stage. So we plan out where the ones going out and in are, and if there's not as many shots on the exterior, we'll double that up with the next episode. So then we'll share it with the next episode a half day, and then it'll be 6.5 days on the stage. Roughly, that's how we do it. And for me, my movies with Mike, I shoot them very, very tight, and I can't give him a lot of this, his toys and the things that he has to come up to. I got this great idea. I'm like, that's fantastic, but we can't afford it. So there's that. And then a lot of times in my movies, we go to actual locations. So I'll be like, this is the house that we're shooting in, and this is the place that we're shooting in. Whereas this, we could build it. And Naaman's an incredible production designer, and the two of them really worked out the best, the smartest way, to do the backings, the rain, every single element that we're going to need to duplicate on this stage. So it was lucky for me, because I have Mike. I think I do prep. I do tons and tons of prep, and we storyboard every frame of everything. And most DPs I would say are uncomfortable with that level of
Right.
description. And then there's a handful that are like, oh, this is interesting. And then there's the very rare ones that take that and run with it, right? So, and Mike's one of those. So if you come into his office, he has all the storyboards up and how he's going to do it and post-its to tell you this. And so he'll come to me and say, I want to use this rig to accomplish this shot coming down the stairs. And we have it in advance. So let's get this zoom to do this and that. And we have this shots. We're doing the next movie and we're storyboarding everything. And, you know, it's like, this is the storyboards for the next movie right there. Right. So this is what we've been spending 3 months on right there. And you know, we have to figure out how to shoot all this, and he has to get the equipment there and how to do that. And rather than being spontaneously thinking of all those things and letting the attrition of the amount of work that we have to do and all the crazy things that happen when you shoot something come and bear on us, we do it in advance. And so Mikey and I are kind of kindred spirits that way. I think, you know, he really, really kind of sits with the materials and comes back and says, how about this? I was thinking about this shot, you know, so we really go through the boards. And so it's a big win for me to have Mikey.
Yeah, and I just love you.
No, I was going to say that is a rare, what I think Knight pointed out is I think, and maybe myself included, might be a little bit like, whoa. I mean, listen, the Coen brothers do it too, right? There's master filmmakers that have that level of precision and pre-planning. Hitchcock, of course, all these, like, you know, and that sense of trepidation, perhaps, of like taking out one of the major tools of maybe the cinematographer's shed of like whatever discovery, finding those things, the figuring out the blocking. But do you think it's in part of your background sort of working your way up that you're willing to sort of accept this as like, this is great, as opposed to something that's limiting you? Because I think that really is it's a special thing to be able to say, no, this actually it gives me actually even more, it gives me all this information. Now I can really deliver on the lighting and all the rest of it.
Yeah, I mean, from the technical side, it's obviously very helpful to have all that kind of blueprint and then you know, and have that so prescriptive, and we can really be as efficient as possible. I think with our, you know, with the tools and with with the lighting, you know, it might be able to you know, take more risks in certain ways, or you know, because I know that we're only going to see you know, this couple or this, you know, this shot was only going to exist in this one frame. And so on the other end, if I'm walking into a scene not knowing how it's going to play out, you know, you need to prepare to a certain extent for everything. And in that sense of preparing it, I don't necessarily maybe have like maybe as much a focus as an idea of the lighting as I could, you know, given that I have the boards in front of me, and it, you know, and that's what it is. So from that, it's, you know, I kind of love that experience and that part of it for sure.
So given that blueprint that you're given and that you guys have in advance of shooting, and knowing that you were in this controlled, like, let's talk for a second, deep dive sort of techie stuff for the ASC members and others looking at this. Okay, so you've got full control. You've got this house you're going to build in 4 different floors around a stage, full control. You have a little sense of like perhaps through the boards of what you need to do. What are some of the techniques now that you had that control of which you could give yourself that prep in the way that you lit those sets? Whether it's like, is it soft boxes and lights coming through the ceilings or soft ceilings? Give me a little taste of some of the techniques that you used on this with that full control of a house on stage.
From the creative side, one of the things I guess we tried to do is, you know, being in a Philadelphia brownstone, you normally don't get too much direct sunlight, and so I kind of like the idea of using that to our advantage. I felt it suited the story not to have, you know, kind of a standard kind of TV sunlit interiors. You know, it's 11 o'clock and the sun's always at this 45-degree angle coming in through the windows. So, you know, we kind of played this overcast, a little more somber lighting, which kind of suited, I think, the colors and stuff that we chose for the interiors of the house. And we also wanted that you know, I think it's dark, but we wanted to think, we tried to find to strike a balance between the look of the house that was we didn't want anything that was too austere. We wanted, I think, that would something that, you could kind of soak in and kind of make sure you weren't getting you didn't feel it wasn't too cold or too off-putting. So by episode 10, you're kind of, I guess, nothing too stark, I guess. But so we used so we had a facade. So we had a facade outside the front of this. We had I guess Neiman built this incredible street which wasn't that too long. The space that we were in a warehouse. It was pretty small. The ceilings are maybe like 24 feet, and then so by the time you get the grid up, it's like 22, 21. So your lights are hanging pretty low. So, but he has like an 80-foot long street, which they have cement and sidewalk, and then the return facade for when you're inside the house looking out. Built a hard structure on the other side for when you're on the first floor. Cars can kind of come in and out. There's rain that works on all the windows, on all the streets, and all that stuff. So we had a lot of light gear, light tiles that did the heavy lifting for our exterior parts of the set. Just given the profile, that was very useful to have to cover that wide area of what would be daylight with a low profile like the light gear stuff. And then on the inside we had soft boxes, which we kind of had the art department make up muslin ceilings, but they had them only slightly paint the muslin ceilings, so they were still shootable from when the lights from low looking up. But then above them, we had these muslin boxes that were pushed down through the soft ceiling, and just using that as diffusion. And then we kind of programmed them in like 2x4 quadrants, so we could only we could turn on each 2x4 section of the light tile at a time. So you could just light this corner, like have a little bit of image in this corner of the ceiling, this corner. So we have a lot of wide lenses and kind of 360 shots. I think Knight and myself are a big fan of wider lenses, and we don't really restrict ourselves to it's never a situation like I can't look this way because I can't I'm gonna have to light it from there. It's like, no, we want to look here to here, and we'll pan around. So that was helpful. Those little soft boxes above the ceiling and all.
And are you doing any cheats like to like mimic the window light that you're photographing? Yeah, like that soft, diffused, sort of ubiquitous daylight out there. Are you mimicking anything to feed that back into the set as well, like over the set walls or anything like that?
Not over the set walls. Only in a couple places, like in their bedroom, we had like some lights pushing in like that. But for we just had muslin on track.
Got it.
So on the backing track, we had a muslin on the backing track, and we just pound 20Ks into that. And we bring in some frames if we wanted to get a little harder, closer, ultra bound sometimes, or lame sometimes to get depending on. But yeah, so when we weren't looking at the backing, or even sometimes we wanted to play the curtains, some close and just have them glow. Then we use muslin.
Well, I'll tell you, as somebody who shoots a lot on location, and I'll say two things that are really complimentary about the show from a practical standpoint is, one, I thought the interiors looked as practically lit and as if I was actually they never felt stagey, for lack of a better word, in the sense of like the way that sometimes you can just feel the sense of like artificiality of that kind of thing. And through all 10 episodes, I really never got bored of that house. And that is actually an amazing credit, because like that would scare me as a DP, that I would be like, oh, can we just go outside and break this thing up? But that's personally me. I'm bringing my own shit into it. But there's something in episode 1 that I loved. And I don't know if it was in the sense of those two clips, but I think in your boards, maybe you called it 4-point. But there's a lot of elements of the blocking in the first episode that I was like mesmerized by, and it involves a bit of night talk, of just the precision of the camera and the way in which each scene was covered that I'm really impressed with. And I'm obsessed with coverage and the minimal coverage, and certainly I think Night, you went through a phase. I remember, I think on Unbreakable, where there was like very few internal cuts, and I was really impressed with the sort of the sparseness of coverage. But anyway, this 4-point thing was a great example of, you do a bunch of shots in the kitchen with this sort of lateral movement.
Yeah, so this would be an example of something that you can come up on the day with this, but you're not going to come up with 100 of these in a row, which is what we're going to do, right? We're going to spend months and come up with this. And I have to get the actors to buy into this in rehearsals and say, this is what I'm thinking. And this is why the camera is moving. You're going to go from a wide to a close up. They're going to be profile shots because you guys are going, you're kind of at each other like a Mexican standoff, the strength of each of you, right? And then we're going to go to finally the close up there where you're looking in the camera and you tell her the truth and tell the audience the truth of why there's a doll in this house. And so I walk them through that, like the emotionality of that. They buy into it. The blocking's there. The camera operator, I would say, for example, you don't move till they make a decision. So it requires you to be incredibly present in that moment. So for me, it was like the idea of, I think the thing that makes us stand apart, Mike, our show in general, is that every shot was planned out. And every director that I hire, and even in the second season, I'm hiring directors that are open to this idea. I don't storyboard their episodes, they do it, but they have to think it out. And if they don't even have to actually draw it if they don't want to, but they and the DP have to go through and think about it. Because I said, or you and I are going to have a problem in dailies. When we watch dailies and you're doing 2 medium shots, I'm going to stop dailies and you're going to tell me and everyone else why they're feeling the exact same thing. So if you can do that, we're good to go. But if you're going to abdicate the artistry of the frame and blocking and movement, I'm not okay with that, because I'm just not okay with that. So this is the art form that we're doing for this show. And so we hire people that are like-minded, like Mikey and myself, to join us on these 30-minute kind of thrillers that are very contained, all thought out. And I tell them to be super daring. And I said, I'm totally okay with us reshooting. I'm totally okay with that. And we will reshoot almost every episode. We will go back and reshoot because we were too aggressive, or we didn't get this, or it just didn't quite work, or your pacing wasn't right because you didn't have the coverage. Don't worry about that. You know, that the worry is you gave me something that anybody could do. Now we have a problem.
Got it. Give me an example of something you reshot of your own episodes.
Mikey, on that pilot, what did we go back and get? Do you remember? We went back and got the performance. We went back and did, if you remember, the tequila scene.
Yes. Well, on Sean's, on one of the sides.
Okay,
right?
so what was the first version? Oh, just for performance.
Well, what it is, it's not for performance as much. It's, hey, look, we're doing this really constrictive long lens frame. And from Nike and I, that's very weird using long lenses, right? The idea is that they're having this clandestine conversation. We don't really, they're in on something, right? We're not completely understanding it. They have a certain relationship. They're kind of, duping his wife and his sister. And the frame was supposed to be very uncomfortable, keep coming in and out of it, lean forward, come out. So the idea was, hey, it was too framed, it was too sedate. And I want a more kinetic performance, but I wanted to manifest in physicality that is totally disrespectful of the frame that we had created. So it creates this kind of, we're not okay quality to these two guys slamming tequilas and talking about, how they're hanging on by a thread. So it's just the subtle things that make the concept of what Mikey and I did in that particular shot pop more.
Sure. Well, I mean, I remember 2 things came out to me coverage-wise that were really interesting. The first time is obviously that great little scene where Sean's kind of almost trying to find himself into the frame, and Lauren's character, Dorothy, is kind of interrupting, and it's all really very specifically feeling like we are Leanne. And then later when Sean talks to Dorothy in the bathroom, I'm feeling very much like I am Sean, in so much as I'm over Sean. Even though he's in a small space, you still have that over Sean to Dorothy, but always clean back on Sean. And the same thing with like over Leanne in the kitchen in a later scene, but clean back on her. So it's like I'm very much in her shoes or in his shoes, but Dorothy is more sort of objectively photographed in a weird way. Is that intentional?
Yeah, Mike, you want to jump in on that?
Yeah, I mean, well, that's one of the things I think I've definitely learned from Night, and kind of tried to, then bring into just my understanding of how I approach, shooting in general, even without him. It's just thinking about each scene.
You took what I taught you when you went to Jordan's movie and you put it in Jordan?
But no.
That's not okay. You guys start from scratch.
Well, you know, I borrow a little bit from everyone, and then yeah.
All right, well, tell me what I'm getting.
It's, you know,
I want to know.
but yeah, I mean, you know, it's the idea of just thinking about each scene from whose scene is it? Is it just a basic thing? I think that whose scene is it, and trying to, you know, almost be somewhat literal with the express the camera somehow. You know, what's the best way to express the camera from their perspective, essentially, and what does that mean? You know, as for the audience.
Yeah, well, it was very effective. I mean, the other thing that I was really impressed with in that opening episode was the choices you didn't make that were sort of like in the sorts of the introduction of Leanne is done in a wide shot. The first time we actually see that it's a fake baby, or it is done sort of thrown away in the sense of we see him crying. That's the sort of and then Leanne's reaction, which is what you would think is like, oh, we're waiting for when she finally sees the next morning this is like a fake baby. It's like just matter of fact. It's all those unexpected choices that I actually was really impressed with, and allowed me to I don't know, to engage more, because you would expect, let's say, to see her face when you introduce her. You would expect to see her reaction when she sees that it's not a real baby, and instead you sort of did the opposite of all of those choices, which I really. And again, is that also part of your thought?
Yeah, it's the thing, you get better at it. I spent my whole life making the movie before making the movie, and it's an art form, just like anything else. I mean, to me, it seems, at this point, it seems crazy not to think about it visually beforehand, but that's just me, and of course you can make beautiful spontaneous choices, and can you do that for an entire show, for an entire episode, for an entire season, for an entire show? And then on the movie side, can you do it for an entire scene, for an entire sequence, for an entire act, for an entire movie? And then more than that, can you do it for more than one movie? Or are you're gonna I fought with my girlfriend and I'm not, whatever, that looks great, let's do the wide shot. I mean, how many times is that gonna happen? That's gonna happen a lot. We're gonna be human beings, and we're gonna get tired. Whereas, we're just not gonna hold ourselves to that. We're just gonna keep on going and going. We've made the new movie. And now we're gonna make it again and again. And and you learn to go, hey, the close-up of Leanne looking at the doll, that's not going to balance right. What I think the greatest thing I learned, and I talked to Mikey about this, doing this show, that has taught me a lot, is it's a 30-minute sequence. That's what it is. And if you see our episode 9 of our show that we shot, it's a 30-minute sequence. So can you do a close-up of Leanne when she sees the doll? Yes, you can, of course. How does that work with the next scene? So you're intensely with her. So you're giving the show over to her and her feelings. But she's having emotions that you can't possibly understand, because I'm not going to tell you who she is or what she's thinking for another 20 episodes. Okay, so you're going to get a close-up of somebody who's holding a lot back from you, and that could be really interesting. Then we're going to go to the next scene in the kitchen, and then we're going to do another close-up of Toby, of Sean. So now they're the equivalent. Is that what we're saying? It's intensely hers and intensely his. Is that? But you can see how you have to look at it like a sequence. So I think the hardest part is when you're doing it spontaneously in the moment, like, okay, actors, let me see what you're going to do, and we're going to figure it out. You can get that moment really well, but does that work in the sequence of the 15 minutes, of the 20 minutes, of the 30 minutes? Have you held that close-up back? Have you held that long lens back? Have you not moved the camera in the right way? Have you teased the language that then gets fulfilled over here? This all happens unconsciously when you're thinking of it as a full sequence. So for me, as I watched it, you're not going to do the close-up of her in that moment. You're just going to watch her picking the baby up and putting it on and changing this doll like it's a real baby.
Yeah. And Mike, let me ask you in terms of, and it's a little bit of a combo question, but so you have these what I would refer to, as the sort of Jonathan Demme type, a close eye line, shots that are very, very effective emotionally and psychologically for the audience. For actors, they can sometimes be quite difficult. Give me just a little tech of like, where are they looking square into, like, just off the matte box at an eye line? I mean, at a tape mark, or are they, in terms of to not make it feel, and sometimes actors, it's strange for actors in a good way and a bad way. Was that similar for these actors? And what did you guys do?
Actually, so because we had, I think we had similar shots like this in Glass, and so in Glass we started using this I forget what it is. It's this little iDirect, this little product called the iDirect, which we kind of got. So it's all just, the Interatron thing that Earl Morris does, basically.
Yeah.
So it's like a mechanical version of that. It's just like a mirrored box. It's very prosumer kind of thing that goes in front of the lens. And then with the mirror, it allows you to see the interviewer behind the camera. It's meant for, I think, interviews, whatever. But I kind of took it and just put it on the front. And then we can put the person off camera, the actor off camera. We can adjust it. And then
genius, man.
Yeah. So I mean, you can only do, I think with, we're LF, so I think the widest lens we could use was maybe like a 35 or a 40. But in those situations, you're rarely, we're usually around that range anyway. Yeah.
But I always thought, like, in a weird way, the hesitation has always been this sense that, like, oh man, if suddenly the actors are like, you can feel them, so that suddenly you go, yeah, is this worth it? Even though the intent is absolutely worth it. So that's a really interesting technique to use.
Yeah, it's definitely difficult, especially on the wider side, because it's any little thing, then they're looking off. But it's a little hard to line up. It's a little tricky to line up, but it's definitely better than looking at tape or asking them to look up, into the performing into a camera. Yeah, I think
it's super effective, and also I remember both of those shots gorgeously lit. Like even that one in the kitchen. Just give me a little sense of what are you doing to augment it? Just a little specific in terms of like when you're bringing things close, like maybe inside the set walls, and you're bringing stuff. What are you normally doing for some of those close-ups?
Yeah, it's kind of evolved through the season. As we got better or worse. I don't know, depending on your opinion. But it was really around the kitchen table. We kind of wanted this, kind of like the idea of not playing like kind of a classical top light thing. I kind of like the idea of playing those kind of pendant
sort of
lamps.
and
right. The bounce from that. So we were really using that and putting some muslin down, or like day gray muslin, and some some shaping it with that just to get a little bounce. And maybe we'd add a little of our own light lamp into that bounce as well, and some little kind of tungsten muslin bounces to. It was just most of it. Night having he set up this like playground for starting with himself, and then for other people to come in, and giving. I think there was a freedom of that, and a creative push that I think is pretty rare, and the ability to like he said, like to go and be aggressive, and then we'll reshoot it if it doesn't work. And I always feel like that is huge. And obviously that was made. It's a little bit easier since we're in one location, all the sets are built. But like that process of that idea that it's okay. You're maybe not going to get everything in the first time. I think it's pretty wonderful and kind of important. And I wish other films were kind of made with that in mind, because I feel like a lot of times you get on this train and the train doesn't leave. And you kind of expected to, I guess on the smaller films too, that you have to make every correct decision along the way, and it's just not going to happen.
I think it's a great point. Yeah, is the fact that if you feel like either reshooting is part of the process, or it's certainly not a sort of saying that we failed, but in fact that we succeeded because we actually were really pushing ourselves, is something that I think is admirable and probably helps everybody do their best work.
The audience is, their IQ is incredibly savvy, right? Incredibly high, and they can sense without knowing why they're sensing it, that's not the right lens, that's not the right distance, that's not the right lighting. It's generalized. It's generalized. And so when you're doing, when you're moving for material that you have to get done on a TV show in general, and you see kind of they're shaking the camera to create, tension, and they're using a longer lens because they can get two cameras going at the same time and cover it. We gotta go. But the way he or she, the actor, is performing it, not in alignment with that choice, just slightly. They don't understand everything we're talking about, but they know that there's a lack of emotional veracity to the statement. So it's like us looking at a photo that isn't well framed or well lit, or doesn't really have anything to say. It's at odds with itself. They sense that when they're watching television. And I could, with my kids, sometimes when I was just teaching them some stuff about cinema, I would go, let's turn on the TV, any show, and I'm gonna show you what you know already. And I'm gonna go, sorry, we watch random show, turns on, we press play, watch it for a minute, stop it, and I said, did you notice they moved the camera for no reason, right? They're moving it like this just to create tension. Or we turn on a music video and they're going around the artist over and over and over, the same movements. And I go, you're unconsciously realizing they're saying the same thing over and over and over just to keep you from not thinking. So they just want you to keep going. And I go, and you can feel that. And then I show them something else where it's really thought, like a film or something. And I'll say, look at how thought out this is. And so the idea was, can we make, however long we do this show, make every frame something that has been thought out? And we may not have nailed it, but there was an intention, there was an accent, there was a human being there making this choice, not being passive in it and just gathering material because, come on, let's go. He's mad at her. Go ahead. Yeah. He got angry. He slapped his wife. Okay, move on. It's like, what does she feel about being slapped? Or differently, what did he feel about getting to the place where he slaps his wife? That doesn't happen in our show, but I'm just saying. And then what is his reaction to it? And does it change as he leaves the room? Now show me that visually, right? To underline it. Those conversations over and over, hundreds and thousands of times as we're making the show, makes for a more considered and deeper thing. TV has gone from an intentionally disposable medium. You're meant to watch it, not watch it while you're paying attention, and never see it again, from the old days, right? To a medium that is being cherished and watched. And so it inevitably went from 24 episodes a season to, hey, let's go less. How about 13? How about 10? And it's gone down, because they realize the quality level now is the thing that's making you buy the streaming network, making you come and watch it again, making you connect. So it's all moving. It's strangely all moving like to the same amount, like film and TV, like starting to come down. Like we did 10 episodes of 30 minutes. It's coming down. It's coming.
And The Irishman is, 6 30-minute episodes. All right, exactly. Same difference. So wait, in your communication to each other and pushing each other in the way that Mike just talked about, how fulfilling and satisfying it was, because it felt like this real creative push and pull.
Yeah, definitely.
From a lighting standpoint, is it something that you guys have landed on, that communication from your first time in Split and Glass? Or is it a constant conversation about like, oh, let's go darker, let's try this? Or is it a little bit of like hands off, let Mike do his thing? How is that communication? Because the show is beautifully lit.
Lighting is, I leave it more to Mike. So when we're doing shots, we do them together. And then when I give the lighting, I let him kind of do his thing. And if there's something that's like tweaking me, I'll mention it. But most of the time, I just let Mikey go on that.
But we discuss in prep too. We'll trade, images, and we'll show you, we'll talk about films and kind of at least have a general sense, of scenes and yeah.
Do you guys ever fight about dark? You ever go like, hey, what's up, man?
Oh, not really. Only in the DI, which is where you're supposed to fight about.
That's right. Yeah.
Honestly, it wasn't that much, I don't think. Yeah.
The DP comes and then makes it look like it's the lights are all off in the thing.
I mean, it's as tried and true a conversation as any director and DP has ever had. Yeah, for sure. That is as predictable as the sun coming up. For you, Knight, in terms of like, and I think you're a father, right? Or you have kids?
Daughters, yeah.
What was your relationship to the subject matter in terms of like whether it's about loss or fatherhood, or because I had a very specific reaction, and maybe it's because we all sort of put ourselves in the shows, but I had a very specific reaction as a father and somebody who struggled a bit with connection to my kids until they were about 4 or 5 months old, and felt very strange to it, that I connected with Sean here, because obviously with the postpartum and all of those things. But as a man, that was my connection, particularly with some throw off thing that was very powerful to me, of like when he describes the death of his son and like, oh, poor little guy just didn't make it. And you're like, wow, it's so casual in the way he just mentioned. And then obviously that is a big part of where the show arcs later in his own grief and all of that. But what was that part of your sort of emotional dig into the show for yourself when you made it?
Well, look, for me, I've said this to everybody that works on it in Apple. I said, this show is about a family that's refusing to mourn. And so and then there's this other story of Leanne and where she's from and where, all of that mythology is going to come and lay over this family that's refusing to mourn. And when he says that, for example, when Sean says that, poor little guy just didn't wake up, he's pretending that he doesn't have those feelings. They're there. I'm not going to access them. And I could talk, you want to talk about my dead baby? Let's talk about my dead baby. But that's not actually the end of the story. In fact, he's not even allowing himself to go into the room where the story actually exists about what his feelings are about what happened. And so that's a beautiful tension underneath. The genre is there as a clothing. But for me, that's the clothing. The underneath is this story, the family that's refusing to mourn, the power of that all of us can relate to. If something tragic on this scale happened to us, how would we continue, and how would we relate to the loved ones in our lives? Would we blame? Would we be angry? Would we want to go away to something completely different and new and go to another country, find another girl, and I just don't want to think about that, and start all over. All those instincts, what are those things that are underneath this? And so the mania, the tone of the mania, this kind of Lynchian kind of humor that's with it all, is an expression of pain. And so it has underneath it this drive, that underneath it all, this mania is coming from a tremor.
Yeah, right. Well, I'll tell you, the other thing that was very powerful for me was we are sort of under the auspice that there was maybe some sort of SIDS aspect to it, but then later when we realized there was a neglect aspect to it, but in large part because of just the massive postpartum, or at least as I never felt judgment as much as I felt sadness for the fact of how burdened mothers are effectively. And I've seen this firsthand with my own wife, and just it's a powerful thing postpartum, and this as a reflection of that, which is a condition that I think is much bigger than the movie itself. But I thought it was great because that was a reveal that happens way late in the show that I thought was really powerful for me emotionally.
Yeah, I mean, for me, really, ultimately it came from something I saw, which was this documentary, and I don't want to ruin it for anybody that hasn't seen the show, or episode 9 of the show, but it came from a documentary of a father who forgot his child was in the car.
Right.
And if something like that happened, I went, well, how could there be a God? Because that was, we forget things. We forget our keys. We forget this. We forget that. But what if the thing that you forgot ends up ending the life of the most important thing to you? No reason. You're not a bad person. You're not, it was just like I couldn't find these glasses the other day. It's just like that. And if that's the way the world works, dude, I'm scared.
Yeah.
Right? This is not great. There's no God. There's not. And so it immediately triggered in me these biblical questions, and this mundane thing that happens, that isn't a war or someone killing someone in war or out of anger or passion, or there's cause and effect there. There's no cause here. This is just nothing, and it altered the lives of everybody. And as you'll see, they'll deal with this. How can that be? That's the kind of underlying question of it. So when when we talk about all those themes, and I think they just come out in Mikey's lighting and then the composer's music. And, for me, Mike and Trevor, the composer, they're equal to me in terms of, doing I'll talk to them like this, and then they'll express it in their art forms about this tragedy of how we do this. And it comes out as, a thriller, a dark thriller, but there's beauty and love underneath it. There's so much warmth in the way Mikey lights the darkness, right? There's warmth everywhere. This is a family, a good family.
Yeah, it was hurting. Yeah, exactly. The score is phenomenal. That sort of mixture of the haunting cello with almost like a playful childlike keys on a piano. That mixture is really, really amazing.
Yeah. And I love that. Like Trevor and Mikey for me are examples of people that didn't have the credits really to say, hey, do this. They did these things. Let me hire them. I loved It Follows, and I had a drink with Mikey, and Mikey's a quiet dude. So I had a drink and we talked very quietly, and I went away. I was like, wow, is he gonna be able to run a set? Like when I left you that drinks that day in LA, I was like, he's gonna run a set. Is he gonna be so quiet? What if like the key grip's really loud? I was like, is he gonna be able to do this? And it turned out, Mikey's strength, he's talking quiet. Don't mistake his gentleness for weakness. He's always like this even keel, always pushing. And so I see It Follows. I'm like, hey, come shoot my movies. Let's go. I know you only did a $1 million movie, but come shoot my movies, right? Like that kind of thing. And Trevor, same thing. He hadn't done really anything. I just heard a little bit of a sample music and do it. And what does that do me working with Mikey's and Trevor's? It's young vampires. They see the world. Anything's possible, right? So he finds the eye direct. He does this. He tells me that, pushes this way, that way. And my desire to never be safe and never play it ordinary and never be, never generalize. These guys are the ones that bring me all these new ways of thinking about it. And so you're seeing a mixture in Servant of all these new, young, amazing voices with kind of the guy with more experience, and that balance of the two, how you try to get the best of both of them. Because as you get anybody, an artist, as they're getting more and more experience, they're using craft too much, and they're muting all the danger and muting all that kind of that thing that comes, that spontaneity and all of that stuff. And these guys are the ones that help me stay away from that kind of mentality.
Yeah, well, that's a great note to end for your piece on. I appreciate you being here tonight. It was nice to have the combination of the two of you. The Servant is, I assume a lot of the people that are watching this may have already watched it. If you haven't, it's amazing and really artful and precise filmmaking in the best possible way. So thanks for being here.
Thank you so much for having me on.
I want to ask Mike, I want to ask you a question, which is when you approach a show, and it's something I always think about, is do you sort of key in on something that makes you go, okay, this is my biggest challenge on this show, or these are one or two of the biggest challenges? You go, okay, I've got a close up here, I've got this, I know this is filmmaking, I understand, and particularly where you are in your career and when you approach something maybe brand new, like for instance, you may have had it with Glass and Split, but had you approached this kind of like panic room, like we're going to do this whole thing in one space in which I have sets to play with, was it any of that sort of brand new? And you're like, God, I mean, I have experience, but I don't have the experience of lighting this kind of space before.
I'd done some of it on Split and Glass and a little bit on Silver Lake. And, they all had their builds to a certain extent. But yeah, this was like I guess probably the largest studio build I did. But yeah, so I mean, yeah, it was new, but it wasn't that scary. Again, it was so contained, and most of it's such an interior film, so there weren't too many real problematic things I had to troubleshoot or anything like that. It was really about making sure, okay, they're raised sets. This is the distance from the backdrop. Like, are we going to make sure, coverage wise, what does that mean? Like, okay, then what does that mean for window treatment? How are we going to solve these problems? Like that kind of practical stuff like that. And we all have to figure out. And so we came up with solutions, technical solutions to those kind of things.
And then what about creatively? Creatively, were there any things where you set out to say, okay, well, maybe on this, I want to try something new, or I want to push myself to have this?
Yeah.
Is there anything you set out to do, and then do you feel like, oh, I accomplished that, or I felt I nearly got there, or any sort of post-mortem of yourself of like?
Well, always, there always is, and that was kind of the nice thing about this set, because it's kind of like, okay, well, it didn't quite get that right, and then well, I'm coming back there in 2 days. We're going to be back in Leanne's room. I can have another opportunity to kind of perfect it. So, and that's what I kind of enjoyed that part of it a lot, being able to come back to those sets and always constantly with my gaffer and a key grip and we were constantly trying to improve in slightly different ways. Like, for instance, like we started like the dining of many scenes around the dining room table.
Right.
I think in the initial rig, we put up one kind of like circular batten strip around the table. And then, on the next one, I'm like, what, let's add a second ring on the inner ring, just to kind of smooth it out a little bit. And then we added another ring. So like, and then season came back into the first episode.
And was that because you wanted a bit more wrap, and it felt like there was more black space in between the one ring that you felt like I wanted to fill in? Was that the intent?
Yeah, it was like it was a little wrap on their faces, and then it was, I think, a little, because the walls are pretty close proximity, so cheesing it was kind of hard. But like there was, it was a fall off thing on the wall. I kind of think it kind of smoothed off the fall off. But yeah. And then creatively, I mean, we tried, we tested, we wanted to shoot film. Didn't quite, I guess, work out logistically. We tried 35, but it, I was really inspired by. I've been kind of fascinated with, the film Birth that Savides did.
Of course, I know.
Yeah. So like that was a huge inspiration for me. Like when I saw that in the theater, it's my mouth like kind of like hit the floor when that first image kind of like comes up of him jogging in the Central Park in the snow, and there's just this like patina to the image that I just hadn't seen before, and there's like it's just an amazing softness to the it's just outstanding.
Well, and it like the king of the soft top light, the ubiquitous top light that was invisible, but yet, I mean, Harris was just a master in those kind of interiors. And Birth was like, I know those shots precisely that you're talking about. Had you shot? I just didn't know from Birth. I mean, from Split and Glass, were those on film?
No.
Then why approach, like when you started out? Was it together you guys went, well, maybe we shoot this on film? Yeah,
I mean, we I kind of, I don't know, for whatever reason, I like the idea that the material and that look of this slightly dirty-ish kind of blacks, and kind of like not quite a clean, I didn't want something cooked so clean. We ended up using the live grain, if you're familiar with the
of course, we used it on Joker. We used it all, even in dailies, so it was present from the VIT 10 through, so that nobody was sort of thinking about it later. It was like we needed to see it from the top, because similarly we were going to shoot film until the 11th hour. Right. And it was like, let's make sure some of that same vibe is there from moment one. Right.
Yeah. So, I mean, we kind of did something similar. And then we obviously settled for the live grain too.
And the LF, had you shot with the LF before that?
No, I didn't. Right? No, it was new. I kind of, I like it. I like the, I don't know, I like the aspect ratio, and the we did 2:1, and that in that format felt felt nice.
And the lenses,
we did Primo 70s, which was good. So I just kind of like the flatness of them.
And what was sort of a hero lens or two? Like, kind of where would you live most of the show?
Probably like 27 to 35.
Yeah. So that 27 has the equivalency, of like
it's like a 21, I guess,
or even a little wider, probably, right?
Maybe.
18, right? Yeah. Had you done a TV show before?
No. Yeah, no. So I don't know if I still have yet, because
Because it didn't feel like it just felt like a long,
yeah,
long movie, right? Although you're working with
yeah.
different directors,
There's
so it's
yeah.
like that must have. What was that experience like? Obviously, you were brought there by Night. Night did the first and the ninth, but yeah, what was the experience like of having a different director come in every week or two?
I enjoyed it. It was it was difficult because I was shooting. I did all like 9 of the 10 episodes, um, so it was difficult because it meant I was prepping on weekends. But yeah, again, like Night set up this whole kind of environment. I think that was very much pushing to do something for interesting coverage, not pushing for some kind of emotional camera work and stuff like that. So and we'd sit and we'd everything was so very contained. We go and we have lunch and we watch dailies each day. I don't feel like I got a real TV experience.
Police have confirmed
Right.
the identity of one of the deceased, a Mr. Eric Sherman, believed to be a visitor to the city. Rumors of a second vehicle leaving the scene have yet to be confirmed. Reporting live from Rittenhouse Square.
This was Leanne's room, which is on the 3rd floor. Yes, it was a mix of tungsten, and at night, we would do the tungsten practicals with this kind of like sodium vapor kind of coming up from the windows, kind of a feel.
Did you eat already?
There's that lateral left to right move, the sort of precise little pans, which I like, or whether it's dolly pan.
Oh, please be fish. Please be fish.
Rabbit 3 ways.
And then we had tried to keep the the lighting in somewhat of the layers of the the table, and then the countertop, and then the stove kind of thing. So we had it's mostly inside too. Tend to use mostly tungsten. We use the LEDs for kind of like, I don't know, profile stuff, and you need low profile. But here, I think it was like a covered wagon of some sort above them, maybe a gem ball, and then we had a batten strip. We keep a batten strip in the hood of.
So the cover wagons and the battens, are they being menaced in? Are they being rigged from the are any of those sort of preset in the location? Or are there more things you bring in per the shot?
That one there in the day, like the batten strip in the hood was kind of just left there. Over the table there, it was something we'd bring in because we were seeing in that area for so much of the time. There's nothing that couldn't be permanent there. And I guess that that was kind of, I think, what we were talking about earlier, is trying to I feel like on many TV shows you have compared and on the stage versus location, you have so many, you're completely limitless on stage, and I guess I like the idea of giving myself some lighting limits as well as some camera movement limits. I think that kind of goes a long way to maybe making it feel a little less theatrically lit of sorts, and so kind of even if it means it's a little more work in the day rather than but I feel like it adds to the reality of right. And
do you got, for sure, I believe in that strongly. I remember like very early on reading an American Cinematographer article. This is when I was quite young, and probably your age. No, but it was like Janusz Kaminski wrote an article about I want to say it was like how to make an American quilt or something he had done just after Schindler's List. And he said, like, oh, every time I'm on stage, I try to like mess something up, like just fuck it up, make it look like something where I didn't have full control over it. So like an inordinate sort of like hotspot that I couldn't control, as if we were shooting on a location and I just didn't have all this like control, which I remember, like back then I would read American Cinematographer articles and take notes into another document. I have all these like documents of American cinematographers with like notes that I would write, like to try to hold with me. And that was one that I held on to forever. So, like, for a good thing. Like, do you guys put walls?
We would pull walls. We wouldn't try to shoot we wouldn't try to put the lens behind where the wall would fall. So we wouldn't like pull a wall and go like 10 feet behind the wall. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Keep it. Yeah. But we'd pull for ease of, because those sets were tight.
Well, like that shot I described in the bathroom with Sean over him. That's a really interesting thing, because we're in a place where we're recognized that, like, to put the camera actually over him in that place was very. That's why
one we actually didn't. I don't think that one we actually couldn't pull. So that one was actually.
You just like
wedged in there with some
foreground, or brought him, cheated him forward, or
yeah,
whatever that was, right?
Yeah. But yeah, you seem to kind of the same approach with like backings. Like I usually tend to like the backings hotter, I guess. I don't feel the need to like see every detail in the backing. Each day, I kind of like the idea that if you're exposing for inside, then usually your outside is a little less controllable. So, and there's such nice, the window treatment that they chose and brought was really helpful and great. It had a lot of texture to it. So even if they were blowing out, they kind of had a nice quality to that.
This is a technical thing that I don't even think we have a clip for, but there's a shot in episode 1 over Leanne looking down at the car pulling away. When they go for a little trip, they put the baby in a car seat and they take off, right?
Oh yeah. Is
that on stage?
No. That's
cheated from a real location there. Because I thought, you said you built outside the stage enough that you could drive a car in, or those.
Yeah, not the second floor, because the way Naaman laid it out, it was first floor, second floor next to each other. But then when you're outside in the street, this second floor is actually the facade of the neighboring house.
Right.
So
yeah. There you go.
This was kind of, I don't know if it because it's kind of a revealing sequence here, so I don't know if it's a big spoiler. So just a heads up. So yeah, this is kind of like the main moment when she kind of realized, what she may have done.
Yeah, this is a very. And this is Steadicam or no?
No, this was, we use a lot of dolly, running on a dolly, in no track. On the floor, yeah.
With a stabilized head or no?
Yeah, usually with the Ronin.
Oh, with the Ronin,
oh,
yeah. But would you use the Ronin in other places?
Yeah, occasionally, for one shot in a night's episode, we put the Ronin on the Steadicam to get this shot going up the stairs where we're like really low looking up, and we kind of needed, So we underslung it that way. It was helpful to get that shot, and then we did it another time to get the opposite effect, where it was really high looking down.
These low looking up many flights. Where is that?
So this is a set extension. The real set only ends about after the first, around the second story, and then this is just, I think, probably the LEDs through the muslin here.
Very much. I can see the birth reference in a place like this. Oh, it's amazing movie to draw from. I've drawn from it many times. It's like it does have a special quality. I get it. This lateral left to right lateral movement happens a lot in this show. It's like a theme of sorts. It's just this pace. It's even in episode 1.
I guess here's an example of the backing being, just kind of letting
Absolutely.
Yeah,
you can see that level of exposure, which I, very similarly in the way that you say, well, if we were really in a location, we wouldn't build the interior up to a 16 to balance that out.
Right, exactly, yeah.
And so why would we do it now that we have a stage?
Yeah, and I kind of just like that look, too. It kind of feels,
sure.
I guess I like practicals being a little hotter, too, than, because it feels like it's justifying. To me, it's feeling it's justifying with the light in the room, right?
I really agree. Where I started really feeling that was driving shots. Where I thought, why are we balancing driving shots? Like, if we shot with no lighting, what would be the exposure outside? And as it's funny, when I started noticing that was Harris in Elephant and in another couple movies. was you started going, yeah, he's not balancing.
Right.
Shooting it. And then the overexposure to the exterior feels so much more real. And you know, and Soderbergh.
Yeah, maybe he's using some negative or something.
But he's certainly not building up that interior. Yeah, exactly. Talk technically about the shot that when we find out she's pregnant.
Yeah, that was all credit should go to Naaman, the director of that episode. Kind of came in and wanted to kind of thought about finding to shoot flashbacks in this other way, and it really, I think, kind of works really well. You know, because you start off in this off kind of place, and then you kind of get to the middle, and you kind of feel like, okay, maybe things are going to be okay, and then it keeps going, and you're like, no, it's not okay.
And talk to me about technique here.
Like what we used to how to do it.
Yeah.
It's just a 3-axis Moses head on an arrow. We carried like an arrow jib for most of it. So we had we carried an arrow jib, like a power pod and a Ronin. So, we'd use kind of both of those depending on the shot, but this was needed a 3rd-axis roll for this. So,
but is it on track to maintain its push, or is it arming and swinging in?
I'm pretty sure it was probably on track, or maybe they were doing like a dance floor move too, because
sure.
I'm not. I'm not sure. But it's not a huge. Yeah. Either way, it's only like an 8-foot move or something like that, a 10-foot move, I guess.
Good job, Harry.
Yeah, it's a great single shot that. It's paced so specifically that it doesn't feel self-consciously showy. It just sort of feels almost lyrical and it has the effect, I would say, that Nimrod was asking for, which is like dreamy in a flashback perspective kind of way.
But really, though, I mean, the crew was a huge, I don't know, we talked about, I mean, just to say, want to express my, just out, complete like love of the crew and how much they really did to pull this off, and how, the camera operator Ben, both my ACs, Scott and Nick, and my gaffer, known for like 20 years now, and a key grip, John, everyone, and everyone there in Philly, they, everyone really, really helped to support, and it was a good experience, good family experience. So
you had your gaffer you'd worked with many times before. Was that similar with some of the other, or were there new crew members you hadn't worked with?
No, it was, I mean, a lot like the ACs. I've known for a while now, done several movies with, and the camera operator did. I've done a few movies now with him, and same thing with the dolly grip, who was a big player. Mark was like, he was just a rock star. He did some amazing feats, because a lot of this we didn't use Steadicam, and so we were constantly doing some compound moves with a Ronin on the floor and stuff like that. So
I mean, I think the thing that people don't fail to realize is that the dolly grip is an operator.
Completely,
the dolly grip is an operator that has to have the same skill set and the same gentle touch, and watching the actors, and a good one is as powerfully as rare as a great operator, and as important as any operator. For sure. Is gaffing for you like shooting for another DP? Is like, because you came up to Electric, is like, do you like, is there a little bit of an overlap? I know for certainly like a DP shooting for me is a little.
How did you start again? Were you on the camera side?
I came up through camera.
Through camera,
I gaffed for 2 days for Francis Lawrence on music videos for my friend Jeff Cutter, who was shooting.
Oh, cool.
And I remember we did this like music video. This is like early Francis Lawrence.
With the
and I was trying to plug in the power in the rain, because it started raining, and I was so terrified. I went, "This is it. I'm done." Yeah, exactly. And that was it. And my assistant on the electrical side was this guy Jared Waldron, who ended up becoming my gaffer for years. So.
Cool.
But that camera mostly. So I've known Mike Gaffer since film school. I went to school with him in Florida, and he's we worked. We came out here and we worked together. On crewing together, and he just
it's just such a huge, amazing like resource that I can't. He does so much for me. So at this point, he just knows, how we work, how I like to work, what I like, and it's just, he just makes it happen. So, and he has a great eye, so it's, yeah.
Like I said, before we met, is I'm a big fan. I feel like I've been watching your work now for many years, and just you're doing some really good things, and this show is a continuation of that.
Thank you. That means a lot. I love your work so as well. So
you don't have to say that.
No,
I wasn't fishing for that at all.
No. Honestly, man. I watched Joker earlier this year and was just blown away. Would love to pick your brain too about some of those things. I'm sure I'll send you emails.
We'll turn the tables. Well, thanks, Mike. Thanks for being a part of the Coffee and Conversation. And
thank you.
We'll see you on the next thing, whatever it is. And we'll keep watching your work. So thanks.
Sounds good. Appreciate it.
Awesome.